Okay, today we're going to replace this whole seal on this windshield of this Bluewater. I've already taken the flange off that holds the window in place. You'll find a piece of metal that overlaps from here to here, and it has screws in it that go into those holes. It basically clamps the window in place. These old windows, the seals go, and once that seal goes, it leaks. I've almost done all of them on the boat except for this one, and when we're done, it's not going to leak at all. All the windows that I've done have been really successful, so this is a good, easy project. But the windshield requires 2 people to do just because of the size. We're going to take it out. We're going to scrape it all the way around. We're going to mark it so we know where exactly how it goes back in, and then put in new poly, I think it's urethane, window sealer that stays somewhat flexible, so that if the boat moves, that windshield stays in place and stays a good seal. Right now, the trickiest thing is I got to figure out how to get these blinds out. I have the cellular blinds that do a really good job on heat. They're locked down at the bottom so they don't swing. And there you go, more to follow. Okay, I did figure out how to do the blinds. You basically reverse the way you put them on, which is you're going to take a screwdriver behind the back bracket and very carefully leverage the back down, and that causes it to pop out. So you go, the back has to lower first, and then the front pulls out. The opposite of putting them on, which makes sense. So you can see the gap all the way around. The gap is normal. The gap is part of it. It's going to get sandwiched in there when the bracket gets put back on. I'll show you that when we reassemble. Okay, quick point to go over. The window has little spacers on it that, get that in focus. These spacers, come on, focus. These spacers, there's 2 of them on the bottom of the window. So when you put the window back in the hole, gravity's going to hold it down to the bottom. So there's no up-down movement really. Then on the side, there's a spacer too. Okay, so side to side. We're going to mark the window. And actually, from what we just discovered, we're going to push it over, because when I come over to the other side, you'll see the spacers right here, and it's actually off the wall a little bit. I know it's a little hard to see, but you see there's a bigger gap. Now this is original placement. Let me show you something. See that opening when I press? I'm pressing on the window right here. See that gap? That's why I've been getting a leak. The seal that you're seeing right up in here is the original. It's like the equivalent of a plumber's putty. So we're going to shift this window over a little bit and then place it so we try to cover that better. Okay, windshield is out. We pulled it out. We put it on the table to take some closer looks at it. You can see here that it had the old, it's like a plumber's putty seal around it. You can see that in some spots it's compressed. In some spots it's not even close to being compressed, which tells me that it wasn't quite seated in there. So this is what you're left with. You're going to have residue on the fiberglass. We put the tape on it because we wanted to know for our positioning from side to side. So we're going to scrape and clean all that residue, and then we're going to scrape and clean from here, and then I'll cover that when we get there. Okay, so we ran into an issue. We've already had it out and we've cleaned up all the seals, and then we put it back in to get a dry fit to it. And what we realized is that the hole was actually cut so close that you see that gap right there. We had to actually shim up here. Put a shim in here. You can see it under that piece of wood right here. To shim it back up because the hole really wasn't cut too well. It's too high on the corners on both sides. So the window's hole is narrower on this side than it is on the other side, which is causing the problem. So we shimmed it up. So we dry fit it, and now we're going to mark it. We're going to tack in that shim so that we can slide back in, because once we get the polyurethane spread up on there, it's going to be impossible to really move things around much. So check your distances. Okay, so here we have everything taped off where we dry fitted it. Okay, and so what the tape is going to allow us to do is there's going to be spillage of the caulking or the polyurethane when it comes out the sides, and then we'll just be able to rip the tape off so that we don't get it all over the gel coat, because this stuff is messy and impossible to get off. They do make it in different colors now, so you can of course try to get the color that matches, but it would unlikely. So the surface is clean now, all around everywhere, and these stops are still in there, but we actually had to put in a shim, put a little spare piece of teak right here that's going to shim the window up a little bit so that we don't have any leaks in these corners that were cut a little bit too wide. Both sides are like that. So next stage is going to be to apply it all the way around the whole window in a pretty good sized bead, and then all the way around this side too. We do both because if there's an uneven area, we want to make sure we get good contact on everything. And then after it's put in there, we're going to let it sit and only slightly tighten it down so that it can start to harden, and then maybe 24 hours later tighten it the rest of the way. All right, here we are putting and it's polyurethane, right, Tommy?
Yep.
Bead all the way around the whole window, nice and thick. On the corners we've gone thicker because of the fact that we're got like a 1/4 of an inch overlap. So we gotta make sure we cover that. Okay, it's all the way around. It's using a power caulker. And then we're gonna do the same thing on the window. Probably lighter on the actual boat, right?
Yep.
And that should be it. Okay, so windows back in. Try to get it good. See that the caulking has spilled out for the most part, which is what we want. That's going to tell us that it had a good contact. Don't press too hard, because if you press real hard, you will squish all the caulking out. So at this point in time, we're only going to secure it very lightly, let it seal up, and then like 24 hours later, then tighten down on the inside. And this window won't leak unless the center part leaks, but these outer edges we did will not leak. Okay, so the window is sealed in, and you can see that a bead is kind of pressed out, and then Tommy went in and reinforced it. It is now pulling the tape. Get a nice clean line. And so the window is just barely screwed in at this point. We haven't snugged it up because we don't want to bleed out all the caulking. So, and if we take a look at the final edge, This is what it looks like. Nice and clean because of the tape. It's hard to get that clean without tape. And that's it. At this point, the window is sealed up. About 24-48 hours, we'll come back in and seal up the inside. I'm going to show you that next. We'll tighten up the inside. I'll go do that now. Okay, now I'm on the inside, and you can see the window frame flange. So what happens here is this little screw hole bites into the edge of the window, and then we'll clamp it in, we'll pull it in. You can see that this is still loose right now, but we've done them in a few spots. There's one, and we've gone through and basically put them in to hold it into place, but not tightened it all the way to cause everything to squeeze out. We use the polyurethane window sealer that is common in the construction industry. It's not 5200, which is the marine industry, but I found it very effective and works great. 5200 would be another way to do it, but this window stuff is designed for the construction industry. I've had more experience with it, so that's why we used it. And I used it 3 years ago for my other windows and had no problem. So I recommend it. Comes in different colors. And there you go. So we will later come in and put every single one of these screws in, tighten the whole thing up, squeeze it good, and that's that. This window will not leak. Hope you enjoyed the video.